destroying priceless artifacts that date back for centuries at the National Museum, which is in northern Rio. Firefighters working through the night to put it out. Officials say the losses are too great to be calculated. Now, nobody was injured, and authorities don't yet know what caused the fire.
Today marks the unofficial end of summer. It is also one of the top travel times of the year, causing pain at the pump, and gas prices, of course, at the highest levels in 4 years. Laura Engel is here with the story. Laura, just how many people are expected to get out there and hit the road today?
Hi, Molly. Well, if you're heading out on the highway this Labor Day weekend, you certainly won't be alone. As summer winds down, as you mentioned, so sad, millions of cars are expected to be on the road today. This summer has already seen an uptick in overall travel. Many experts point to the booming economy and low unemployment rates for the increase in vacationers. At AAA says 35 million Americans will be traveling over 50 miles this weekend, which is a 5% increase from last year. 16.5 million of those will be airline travel, which is up 3.5% from last year.
Summer is synonymous with vacations. It's a pastime people don't want to give up. And when the economy is performing better, which we're seeing now, and people have a little bit more change in their pockets, they're inclined to spend that on travel.
Spend that money. Labor Day is the 5th most traveled holiday each year, with the end-of-year combination of Christmas and New Year's topping the list, Molly.
Absolutely. Great opportunity to see the folks. All right, the price of gasoline is higher than normal for this year, but it's expected to drop, right?
Yeah, that's right. This weekend actually began with the highest gas prices for a Labor Day holiday in the past 4 years, with a national average of $2.83. But that number is expected to go down to about $2.70 a gallon this fall. This is attributed to the lack of demand after the summer, stable crude oil prices, and the switch over to cheaper winter blend gasoline. Businesses are also looking forward to this high consumer confidence and low gas prices as we head into, are you ready? The holiday spending season. Because I didn't invent this number, I'm just reporting it. We're only 16 weeks away from Christmas, Molly.
I had to say it. Down to the midterm, so many things to keep up on. You know, I just learned something, a winter blend.
I know, right? Yes.
Good to know.
Something
We're
special.
getting ready for the winter blend already.
That's right.
Laura, thank you so
much.
Molly.
I
appreciate it.
All right. Fox News alert. We've had a tropical storm that's formed overnight, headed now for the Gulf of Mexico. So how will this affect Gulf Coast states?
Plus, Senate Democrats angry about what they say is a lack of transparency from the Trump administration ahead of tomorrow's Supreme Court confirmation hearing for Judge Brett Kavanaugh.
The point I'm going to make is that this is not normal. You have a nominee with excellent credentials, with his family behind him. You have the cameras there. You have the senators questioning. But this isn't normal.
For those who are driven by purpose, who are building others instead of just wealth, giving back and never giving.
This isn't normal. It's not normal because we are not able to see 100,000 documents that the archivist has just, because the administration has said we can't see them. They've exerted their executive power. 148,000 documents that I've seen that you cannot see because they won't allow us to make them public.
That is Minnesota Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar arguing about a lack of transparency from the Trump administration. Her remarks come as the Senate Judiciary Committee gears up to question Judge Brett Kavanaugh at his confirmation hearing this week. Tim O'Brien is an attorney who has covered the Supreme Court for 2 decades. He is also the author of Murder at the Supreme Court, Lethal Crimes and Landmark Cases. An intriguing read, but today we're going to talk about the hearing up ahead this week. Kicking things off, we just heard from Amy Klobuchar, who's talked about a lack of transparency. Do you agree with her in any sense?
Not really. These documents are protected by executive privilege. It's the Bush administration, the last President Bush, who said he didn't want them released. It'd be nice to have them, but what you really need to look at are his past opinions, how thoughtful they are, how scholarly they are, and I think that's enough.
Tim, as you mentioned, there is a significant amount of information that is available. In a letter sent on Friday, Bill Burke, he's the attorney for the former president, former George W. Bush, he kind of explained to the Senate Judiciary Committee why some of this paperwork was being withheld. He said there are deliberations about candidate advice concerning the selection and nomination of judicial candidates, the confidentiality of which is critical to any president's ability to carry out his core executive function. Meanwhile, there are some more than 440,000 documents in total that are available for perusal. Take a listen. This is another Democrat, Dick Durbin, the senator, who had something kind of similar to say.
They are suppressing these documents. If we're lucky, we will see 6% of all of the documents that have been produced, or could be produced, to reflect on Kavanaugh's true position.
But there truly is a voluminous amount of paperwork if anyone's staff members were going to try to comb through it all. Do you think that paperwork will give Democrats, Republicans there that will be questioning Judge Kavanaugh in the week ahead enough information to get started on his views?
This is an argument that's going to go nowhere. It's not going to win over any Republican votes. This nominee, barring some extraordinary disclosure about his personal life, is going to sail through. Democrats are understandably upset. This is a momentous turn in the court. Conservatives have been looking for this for more than 50 years. Ever since Richard Nixon was elected president in 1968, the last president to campaign on the Supreme Court. Legal scholars will tell you that there's a pendulum at the court. It swings ideologically. Well, conservatives have been waiting for this swing for a long time. It just hasn't happened. Now it's going to happen. Conservatives will have a lock on the court similar to the lock that liberals had in the 1960s. And if there's anything surprising about this at all, is that it didn't happen sooner. Democrats went 25 years without a single appointment to the court. So it's surprising that it didn't happen sooner, but the fact that it's happening now is of great concern to liberals and to Democrats. It's going to be a new world at the Supreme Court.
And certainly Judge Kavanaugh, if in fact he is confirmed, is fairly young for a nominee, just in his early 50s. Here's Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican.
A long record, 12 years on the D.C. Circuit Court bench, over 300 decisions. I mean, the Democrats have more than enough information to understand that this is a highly qualified jurist that should be the next Supreme Court justice.
He talks about some of the things that are available, and we are considering we're talking about someone that is fairly young entering this process. The amount of information, the amount of documents, that this long history he's had as an attorney working for a prior administration. I mean, combing through all of this, Republicans seem like very confident heading into the week ahead that there's a tremendous amount of information out there, and it'll be plenty to be able to present his philosophy, in a sense, and to give a good idea of that.
That's not surprising. The fact is, this will change the court, and Democrats, as would Republicans, will do anything they can to defeat this nomination. Ever since the confirmation fight over Robert Bork, the rules have changed. Anything you can do to prevent this ideological seismic shift on the court, Democrats would do, as would Republicans. We saw Republicans do it just a few years ago with the nomination of Merrick Garland.
Is there anything that Democrats can do to stop it? They don't have the numbers alone. They would need at least one Republican. Is there any drama here?
Well, I think there's going to be some dramatic speechifying, but the outcome is pretty much assured. I think the Democrats' best hope is to see if they can somehow delay this until after the election, giving red state Democrats an opportunity to vote their conscience and maybe vote against this nomination. And of course, if there's any way that they could delay it beyond the next election and win the Senate, well, then you'd have the Borkian bloodbath I was describing earlier. But that's sort of a fairy tale. The likelihood of that happening is very, very slim.
All right, an interesting week ahead. Tim O'Brien, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Molly.
We move out west now for our next Fox News alert. There was a police-involved shooting in San Diego. Authorities identifying a man they say fired a gun just outside a racetrack last night. According to what the police are saying, 22-year-old suspect was upset that he was not able to get tickets to a concert. Jeff Paul, live from our West Coast Bureau. So what exactly happened, Jeff? Do we know?
Well, Connell, the shots going off during a very busy holiday weekend at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. In fact, we have some video that captures a moment where you can hear the gunfire as the crowd is moving around the outside area of the racetrack. Take a listen. believe the man who was shot, 22-year-old Daniel Eliza Rares, was at the fairgrounds to buy tickets for an Ice Cube concert that was later that night. But when he was told there were no more tickets available, investigators say an argument started. Deputies came to the scene, and that's when they say he pulled out a silver-plated semi-automatic handgun and started firing into the area packed with people. The man, they say, was shot by deputies. This all happening, though, while a horse race was going on at the track.
Fire. Okay, there's gunfire at the track. There's gunfire at the track. There is gunfire at...
Now, the man who was shot was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. We're told no one else was hurt. Connell?
Well, you know, Jeff, even that video that you showed a minute ago, we could see there were a lot of people in the area. Anything that we're picking up from witnesses?
Well, a spokesperson with the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club released a statement saying they take consolation in the fact that no patrons, officers, or security personnel were injured. They credited private security and local law enforcement for keeping everyone safe. But the concert moved on as planned, and those who were there say thankfully it didn't impact their night out.
It happened so fast. There was 1,000 people, but yes, it did happen. It was taken care of. San Diego did a really great job getting everything together.
We just kept watching. Like there was no panic, nothing. It was just, everybody was watching the race.
Del Mar's final race day is today and will go on schedule despite the shooting. Connell?
All right, Jeff Paul on a terrible story out west that really could have been even worse. Thanks, Jeff. Molly?
A search is underway for 4 people missing after the collision of 2 boats in the Colorado River in Arizona. Authorities say 2 boats crashed head-on into each other, throwing all 16 passengers from both boats into the water before the boats sank. Many of them were rescued by nearby boaters. 9 people were injured.
All right, the New York Governor Andrew Cuomo making a major announcement for victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. How the Democrat plans to take on the Trump administration once again.
Plus, the lawyer for President Trump's former attorney walking back a bombshell claim about the president, but the fallout is far from over.
I blamed myself for not being more clear that in my mind, I did not know the details about that meeting, and I should not have encouraged any reporters.
Kavanaugh faces the Senate as his SCOTUS...
That he'll help families sue President Trump. Cuomo says the administration failed to provide adequate help after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico last year, and New York State stands ready to help.
We're going to hold King Trump to the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution said equal protection under the law. And Puerto Rico did not receive equal protection under the law.
And there were no immediate details released about Cuomo's plan, nor did the governor take any questions about it.
To a story now that's getting a lot of attention, Michael Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, taking the fall for the controversy over a CNN report. He says he blames himself after the network ran a story about Cohen, knowing that President Trump had advanced knowledge of that Trump Tower meeting with a Russian lawyer, offering dirt on Hillary Clinton back in the campaign. Here he is on Media Buzz.
I took this responsibility because I was unsure about the issue of the Trump Tower meeting. And I thought that there were other people that could have been in the room, and that it was up to journalists to go look at that.
All right, let's go now to former White House Chief of Staff to President George H.W. Bush and former New Hampshire Governor John Sununu. Governor, welcome. Thank you for joining us here on Labor Day. On this particular...
Happy Labor Day, Connell.
Thank you, sir. On this particular topic, what do you make of how Lanny Davis, as you know, has been around Washington for years and years, is handling himself now?
Look, this story gives great insight into the spin machine that the Clintons and the Obamas have developed over the years. They want to put something out, whether it's true or not, They create, first of all, a network of people that will confirm the story to the press, people who may really not have any idea what they're going to confirm, but having been primed by the likes of Lanny Davis, are ready to give the nod when the press contacts them. Lanny is doing what Brennan did with the dossier when he went to Reed. It's what Clapper did. It's what that whole process that now has created the investigation was built on. So Lanny got burned by not doing it as well as he usually does, but in trying to exonerate CNN, he's making himself look more foolish, and CNN, by the way, I am absolutely sure knows what's going on when they do this, but they got burned especially on this story because the CNN reporters led by Bernstein lied when they said that Lanny Davis declined to comment on the story and put that into the original story.
That was part of the original story, saying that Michael Cohen's lawyers, Lanny Davis, declined to comment, and apparently he was the source or one of a number of sources. And that, Governor, is what makes this story a little
Connell,
bit different.
let me emphasize.
Yep.
Let me emphasize.
Go ahead.
When you say one of a number of sources, he's one of a number of sources that he created before the fact, just to have those sources there for CNN.
Well, that's what
this
I wanted
is
to
the
ask you about.
process they do.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, the process, because and you know from being in government how all of this works and how stories sometimes get in the news through anonymous sources and all the rest of it. What is a little different about this is that in the past, when something like this happens, the news organization that's behind it issues a correction, maybe an apology, and moves on. CNN is not doing that in this case because, to the earlier point we started to talk about, they're saying that they have other sources. So what, it's tough for us to look in from the outside. So, well, we don't know because we don't know who those sources might have been. But you're saying that in your view they were all planted there by Lanny Davis in the first place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and look, when CNN is being absolutely irresponsible on this, because the prime source for an issue like this is either Cohen himself or his lawyer. And when his lawyer says it isn't true, and when the lawyer speaks for the client and says it isn't true, there can be no better or corroborating source that would undo, if you will, the accuracy of that.
Now, there's kind of a wider issue in all of this as well, and that's kind of the trust in what is reported by media organizations in general. In this case, we're talking about CNN, but in general, the president, as you know, has gone after the media on a number of occasions, fake news and what have you, and a story like this, I would suppose, just adds more ammunition, right?
Well, CNN just plays into the president's hands with this story, with their story on Scaramucci, with their story on claiming that Donald Trump Jr. knew about WikiLeaks before it, when the people who leaked to CNN forgot to put the one in front of September 14th, and CNN thought that multiple leaks were telling them it was September 4th. Right. That kind of a mistake gives evidence to the kind of network that's built up to give false support to these kinds of leaks.
Meaning that even if, and do you give any percentage chance, by the way, that there's any chance maybe this story is true, that there are other sources, or have you completely ruled that out?
Look, I've learned in life that everything has a chance, but if you want to go and make some money and bet against CNN's accuracy, you'll make money all the time.
Governor, thanks. It was good to see you today. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Governor,
thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
We're on tropical storm watch with a fast-moving storm headed straight toward the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Adam Klotz is on deck, tracking it all. That forecast next.
Fox News weather alert for you now. Tropical storm warnings in effect for the Gulf Coast from Louisiana right up to the edge of the Florida Panhandle. This as we keep a close eye on two other systems that are brewing in the Atlantic. Let's get to meteorologist Adam Klotz, who's tracking it all for us and joins us now from the Fox News Weather Center. Adam.
Hey there, this update just came in the last several hours here this morning. It was a tropical wave, now up to a tropical storm. Gordon sitting there just off the coast of southern Florida. There's your little center of rotation, the heaviest rain now running through areas of Miami. This is going to be a big rain producer, widespread across portions of southern Florida, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. That's why we have some flood warnings already in place in some of the southern counties. This is going to move across southern Florida today into the afternoon hours, moving back out into the Gulf of Mexico for tonight. So that's the timing with this. and that's why you're going to see some of these tropical storm warnings along the southern Florida coast, and then it moves back out into open water and eventually moves across the Gulf, and you're going to be seeing it eventually bringing some storm warnings there into portions of the Louisiana coast over towards Mississippi, all spots that could see some effects with this storm. Here's your future forecast, and I'll put it into motion for you. It seems a little messy there, but there's your center of rotation. Begins to move out already by the time we get into the overnight hours tonight. You're past Florida. You've moved off the coast of Florida, already clearing back up in South Florida for tomorrow. Then you move back out into open water. When are we expecting it to approach the northern Gulf Coast? That's getting into late Tuesday into early Wednesday morning. That's the time frame for that particular system when the heaviest rain is eventually going to fall. Not really expecting it to get any stronger than it already is. So winds there at 45 miles an hour as it moves back out over the Gulf of Mexico, eventually running along the northern Gulf Coast there, also as a tropical storm. So we're not expecting this to become a hurricane. Winds will be there around 45 miles an hour. Mostly it's going to be a rainmaker for a lot of these areas and will continue to be. So the motions of the potential tracks of this, these are our spaghetti plots, and you do see pretty much in line with this moving across the Gulf of Mexico, running there close to Louisiana, stretching over there towards the northern Florida Gulf Coast also. But the track of this is continued to maybe strengthen just a little bit. I'm not expecting a whole lot more. Rain is going to be the main concern with this one, Connell, and that's going to be something we're really focused on. Again, 2 to 4 inches in South Florida, that's today. Getting into early Wednesday morning, we're talking about 4 to 6 inches there on the Gulf Coast.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it, Adam. Yep. Thank you. Adam Klotz.
President Trump warning Congress to stay out of trade talks with Canada ahead of renewed negotiations with our neighbors to the north this week. What he's revealing about the latest negotiations next. Patient is gathering on Capitol Hill. We are just one day away from Brett Kavanaugh's first confirmation hearing for the Supreme Court. Good morning, I'm Molly Line, in for Sandra Smith, live inside America's Newsroom.
Great to be with you, Molly. I'm Connell McShane, filling in for Bill Hemmer, and sparks will fly, according to one Senate Democrat, as the president's pick for the Supreme Court will sit down in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. That will be tomorrow. Democrats still upset over documents being withheld by the White House.
Meanwhile, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News Sunday that confirming Kavanaugh is a no-brainer.
A lot of people should vote for Judge Kavanaugh. If you're looking to a Republican president to pick a qualified conservative, he would be on the top of anyone's list, including not just Donald Trump. He's the one person I think every Republican president would see as the most qualified of their generation.
Let's get to Jillian Turner live in Washington. So tomorrow, Jillian, of course, is the big day. What's on Judge Kavanaugh's docket, though, today before his big hearing?
So, Connell, Kavanaugh spent much of the past week in prep sessions for the hearing, known here in Washington as murder boards, where close aides and advisors have been grilling him on the toughest topics that are likely to surface. They're fully anticipating a grueling hearing for him, especially with lawmakers in attendance who are themselves eyeing presidential bids in 2020. They're likely to use their questioning as a vehicle to highlight their own stance on President Trump's policies. Kavanaugh himself believes sitting presidents should be protected from criminal investigations and civil lawsuits while in office. But if confirmed, he'll preside at a time during which the court may have to confront both these issues.
He comes before us at a time when people are concerned about whether this president or any president is above the law.
Capitol Hill insiders are rife with predictions that if the Democrats retake the House in November, Democrats may initiate impeachment proceedings. Connell?
Right. Today, obviously, Jillian, a holiday, but what about official Washington? What's the focus here the final day before this hearing?
Still a major point of contention here today, just 24 hours out now, the roughly 100,000 pages of records the Trump administration announced it's decided to withhold.
The first time in history, this denial of access to documents violates a rule that we thought was the tradition of the Senate. If we're lucky, we will see 6% of all of the documents that have been produced or could be produced to reflect on Kavanaugh's true position on issues.
Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans point out more than 2.5 times as many records have already been produced for Kavanaugh than for any other nominee in history. It's nearly 500,000 pages and counting so far.
Democrats have more than enough information